Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one guys, we're going to play Trash or Grab, the game where we check the golden and weekly vendors to see are the items worth grabbing or they absolute trash. As always, I cover every vendor in this video, so the golden vendor, infinite archive, scholarium and so on. That said, the stock does change week on week, and this is recorded on the 31st of May, so if you are watching in the future, things will be different. For the golden vendor herself, she's located in Cyrodiil. You can find her at Northern High Rock Gate on DC. If you're on Aldmeri Dominion, she's down over at the Western Elsewhere Gate. And if you're on Ebonheart Pat, you can find her in the Southern Morrowind Gate. As always, I do record this every single week, so if you like this series then let me know by liking and commenting below, and if you want to stay up to date with it then make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out. And as always, I want to say a massive thank you to all of the Patreon and YouTube members who support. They get exclusive content, early access and much more. If you want to do that stuff, there's details down below. As for this week, she's selling the Amber Plasm set. This is a necklace which is pretty good in all honesty. The 5-piece gives you loads of recovery, so it's 245 magicka and stamina recovery. The health regen is nice, but from a PvP perspective, health regen is cut by half. It's not that useful. Like, it's free healing, but not the best. So as a sort of sustain set, it's good. Wretched Vitality is better in all honesty. It's craftable. So this is like always active, whereas Wretched you have to kind of use, but you always keep it up anyway. So it's not a bad set to get. It's also worth stressing this is a dungeon set, so if you don't have this already, then do consider buying it. For that reason alone, I am going to buy this just to fill the sticker book up. It saves me like trying to farm it. We then have the necklace of Nicholas, I think it's pronounced, and it's loads of armor, and then when you block, you gain a stack of Nicholas's resolve for 5 seconds, up to once every half second. At 8 stacks, you completely avoid 1 hit of damage basically, and it does consume that buff. It's a mediocre set in all honesty. There are better sets to use out there, and for that reason alone I would skip this. Yes, it's a dungeon set. You only want to get this if it's sticker book, and it's a lot of money and a lot of AP for sticker book, so I'd probably skip this. The next one, we have a tried and tested set. This is fantastic for PvP. This is Way of the Fire. Way of the Fire, when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, you do an additional 2100 flame damage, and it can go off every 2 seconds. This does scale of weapon and spell damage, and on a typical build, this is about 3000 tooltip. At the moment, I'm on a max magicka build, so my spell damage is actually quite low. But that said, even when we buff up with just that one buff, it goes to 2500 already. So you can see when you got 4,000 or 5,000 weapon spell damage, this goes really, really high. For that reason, I would buy this personally and then sell it. It is a very, very popular set. It's a really good way to make money. So if you are a bit low on gold, buy this with the alliance points and you could sell it for sort of 50, 60k quite easily. You know, you won't get any more than 120 because people have this. But my suggestion would be buy it this week, wait 3 or 4 weeks, then sell it, and you'll make a good amount of money. We then have Twin Max Valor. So when you cast a damage shield, you call down a fragment that heals you and group members. It also does some damage. It has a 5 meter radius with a 2-second delay. It does scale off your max resource. So as you can see on a sorcerer, we have 53,000 health, magicka, sorry. So that's why this is so high. Normally it's about 4,000 or 5,000. For that reason alone, I wouldn't rush to get this. It's not that good a set. For PvP, people just step out of it. It's a big AoE on the floor. People can just move out of the way. And it's also got a 2-second delay, so that anybody's moving and you're fighting, what ends up happening is it procs, and by the time it actually lands and does something, they're out of the way. So from a PvP perspective, not that useful. From like the healing side's okay, but again your allies move out of the way. And then from a PvE perspective, it's not terrible. There are better sets though, so for that reason alone, I wouldn't rush to get this. We then have Tremor Scale. Tremor Scale is a dungeon set. It's a base game dungeon, so quite easy to farm. When you activate a taunt ability, you cause a Doom Reaper to burst from the ground, and it does some physical damage, and it lowers the enemy's armor. This is a okay set. In all honesty, you don't need the penetration of the armor debuff in PvE. Most optimized groups will run enough penetration as it is. That said, if you're in an unoptimized group with maybe doing like random dungeons, it could be useful. But the problem is that you're going to run something like Sploon of Ruinda, which is a mythic item, It's a shoulder piece, which means you can't run a monster set anyway. So if you run that mythic, you then lose a monster set, and this isn't like better in my opinion. This is probably worse. So I would probably skip this week. We then have Phycosa, which is a DLC set. When you bash an enemy you've taunted, you frighten them with a Deafening Howl, apply a major cowardice to them, and it lowers their weapon attack damage for 8 seconds by 430. It's a big damage reduction, which is very good in PvP because most heal scale of damage, thus lowering the damage reduces their damage and their healing in most cases. So it's not a bad set to get. That said, I wouldn't rush to buy this. You can see I don't actually own it at all because I've never used it in PvP. It's not worth it. I have played around with it on the PTS and stuff. I have seen people use it in sort of dungeons, but there are better sets. Again, it's not that great. And with Scribing, you can get this debuff as it is. So I'm only going to buy this just because I can't be bothered to farm the dungeons. You know, it was 100k. I'd rather just use the money and just get this sticker book filled. But I wouldn't recommend buying this personally. But that there, guys, is the Golden Vendor. There's a few good things in here. I would really suggest getting the Necklace of Fire. It's a really good way to make money. And then hold on to this. The Amber Plasma's not terrible. You know, there are better sets. Wretched Vitality is crafted. It's a better version, basically. But this is still a good set if you want something that's always active all of the time. So there's some good stuff this week. Not super weak, but still worth considering. We're now going to go hop on over to the Infinite Archive. Here we check the leads, see if there are any good mythic items. So anything you go, oh, I really need to farm this ASAP. And then we then hop into the Scholarium and the Telvar Merchant in the Imperial City. For the Infinite Archive, you can find them in Apocrypha, and you're looking for this icon over here. It's in the kind of sort of north in the middle. Once inside, you want to look for a vendor called Filer All, who will sell a range of exotic things, so from scripts to leads and just cosmetic stuff. We're going to focus on the leads and also the kind of scripts, see if there's anything worth grabbing. It is worth stressing though that when you do get here, this has its own currency system, Archival Fortunes. So if you don't do this mechanic and interact with this kind of system, you won't have any money here. So it is worth just stressing that. The vendor themselves is over here at the back, and they are selling some leads for some different things. Now you've got one lead for Snow Traders, which is a really good mythic for PvP. It basically makes you immune to snares and immobilizers, so it's really good. You can't sprint, but I still think that's a well worth trade-off. The lead itself, however, isn't the hardest one to get. So this one, you can get it from Bleak Rock Isle, which is just a random starting area, and drops any random mob. So you literally go over to Bleak Rock Isle, which is over here, just kill stuff, anything around here, and it will drop. As a result, this is quite easy to get, so I would skip this one. We then have the Harvester Scale Plating, which is for the Esoteric Greaves. This is really good. I am experimenting with a build which basically has, I think, up to 7,300 stamina recovery, which means this mythic is always active. What this does is it basically gives you 50% damage reduction when you take a direct hit, and it works every 0.3 seconds, so it's up all the time. Really good mythic. It's basically auto block. So kind of view it like that. This lead itself, it comes from the Gorm Public Dungeon boss. So for that reason, I wouldn't rush to get this. You can go over to the Telvar Peninsula, which is over here. Look for the group dungeon and then do its boss. So for that reason, I wouldn't rush to do this. Like, you can just kill the bosses here quickly. You'll get this lead fast. Good mythic nevertheless. We then have some scripts this week, so we've got Protection, Disease, and Assassin's Misery. Assassin's Misery is very good. It is worth stressing that this is mainly used on the scribing for Elemental Explosion, which is up here. You would use something like fire damage because most people are vampires, so they take more damage from that. Assassin's Misery because it applies burn and concussion, more damage. And you'd use something like Defile to reduce the healing. Off balance, you want to do a medium attack to get a stun after this. You could also use something like Brutality Sorcery as your damage boost. I personally go with Bristle. That's my kind of choice, or Defile. Those are kind of the choice here. And this becomes quite a decent just bombing skill in all honesty. It does really need this script though. So if you want to play around with that skill and actually have it optimal, this is a very good script. It is going to be 5 times the cost, so it'll be 20,000 if you don't know it on one character. So just do factor that in. The disease damage is nice, but you've got enough disease sources as it is, and you can't use it on the spammable. So with the Superstar and the Scribing Simulator, you would want to use it on Wield Soul, and it's okay there. But when you put on some of the other things, so you might want to go with something like Torchbearer, it's not on there. You want to go with maybe something like Contingency, it's not on there. You may want to go, well, maybe Smash, you can find it not on there. So you can only really use it on Wield Soul, and what that means is that something like Contingency, which is quite a good delayed burst skill, you can't use Disease. So if you're thinking of a Necromancer using Disease damage, you only have Wield Soul, which is your spammable now. You then obviously have Blast Bones, but that's about it. And it's the same problem Warden has with poison damage, with frost damage, sorry. There's not a lot of frost skills in the game, and there's not a lot of disease skills in the game. So this doesn't really fix that problem. So I wouldn't rush to buy this hoping that it would fix it. It's expensive. It's 15,000 if you don't have it already. If you do have it, then it may be worth getting again, but I wouldn't rush. And protection is easy to get. You get minor protection from just running Temporal Guard at the back bar. So in the Sigic order, you can literally level this up and get the other morph, which will give you it always active. Many skills like Bound Aegis has it anyway built in, so you've got minor protection down here. So you can get that like buff as it is, and major protection you can't really get from that script. We're going to hop over to Avea now and to the Scholarium to see is there anything worth grabbing here. As with the series and so on, if you do like this, then let me know in the comments below. Maybe what would you use the items for? Have I made a mistake? Is there something that I've kind of sort of overlooked? Then let me know in the comments, and maybe you've got a different use for something. I'd love to know. As always though, if you want to stay up to date with the series, then do like and comment and subscribe if you haven't already. The Scholarium will sell different scripts. You have to have completed the first wing, so the Indrik, at least once on your character. This will then unlock it for the entire account. And if you go towards the sort of southeast roughly, you'll find the vendor Fernando, who sells a range of stuff. He always sells these Grimoires, so just ignore these. We focus on these scripts. He has Gladiator's Tenacity. This is fantastic. I'd buy this 100%. He has Brittle, which is still decent. I'd buy this. Heroism, which is okay. It's there. Knockback, I would skip this one personally. It's okay. You can get this quite easily. But the Tenacity is where to go, in all honesty. I would recommend with all of these personally, always buy a couple. They're always decent to get. Some are better than others, obviously. And you'll find that some of them I cannot use because I actually already have them. But what you can do is you can deposit it. So if I type in script, I've just bought these two. I can then buy them and then go to the vendor and buy another two. You might also notice that this is 20,000 rather than 4,000. Like, why is that? If you know a script once already across the entire account, it's going to be reduced by essentially down to a fifth. So it's a big, big reduction. That means what I can do is buy this, use it on this character, and then if I were to buy it on another character, it's now 4,000 because one of my characters now knows the scripts. So it is worth considering. And that heroism I do actually have in here, so I can deposit it again, and I can just repeat doing this. So my advice would be, if you've got a bit of gold lying around, as a script or two you might use across the account, just buy a couple of them, put them in the bank. They're there for when you need them. You never know when the script will come up again. You never know if they could change things. So I would always just have a couple spare, because I have got like 16 alts, so you need a lot of spare scripts. But script wise, there's not many good ones apart from Tenacity. This is fantastic. This is very, very expensive, even with knowing the script, but it is well worth it. For like people curious, Tenacity you'd use on Contingency. You'd use with something like Healing, or you'd use something with Damage Shield. They're quite common ones to use. Gladiator's Tenacity is an 8% damage reduction for 8 seconds. This applies to you and allies, so it's a huge amount of damage reduction, which is fantastic. And then what you can then do is put on Intellect too, so you get minor Intellect. You now have a skill that will heal you. It will reduce your damage taken, and it gives you regen buffs. It is fantastic. So this is such a strong script. And when you compare it to the other ones, you have Warrior's Opportunity, which is nice, but that's like the offensive version for ganking. Not really needed though. Sage's Remedy, which is heal over time, is pretty bad as a low heal. Growing Impact basically makes this on the floor, the affix. So it is kind of okay, but the Tenacity is where it's at. It's a huge damage reduction. If you're unsure like how big of it is, if you look at Bound Aegis, this has minor protection, which is 5%. That is 8%. They stack together. It is really nice. They are multiplicative, so you don't get like the full 8, but it's still worth getting. We're now going to hop on all the way over to the Telvar vendor, see what they are selling. But definitely get that script if you haven't. It's a really good script. I'd buy a 4 or 5 and chuck in the bank. Once we get into the Imperial City, we're going to have a look at the Telvar vendor. They will sell a range of different stuff that you can get. Note that if you are on a different alliance, the name of the vendor will be different, so just factor that in. And you're looking for this fire and anvil symbol. As you go down, you find them. If you're on the blue like I am, you're looking for Kozogla, I think it's called. She's like an orc. She will say Telvar Merchant on her. If you're on the other alliances, you're either looking for Here's the Stone or Tamud, I think it's pronounced. This week, she is selling the following stuff. Harbinger, which is fantastic, is a really fun set. Is this worth 100,000 Telvar? No. Don't spend 100k on this. Do you need it to be gold? No. It is a fun set. You can really abuse it if you use Shield Wall. I have a build where this is basically up 100% because I have Shield Wall up like 98% of the fight. It is ridiculous. So this is a really fun thing to use. I actually have a Patreon exclusive and a members exclusive for that. Really fun set. Bit hard to build around, but definitely worth looking into. You then have Morag Tongue. This used to be really good. When you deal direct damage, you cause the enemy to take 10% more damage from your poison disease attacks for 5 seconds. It's really good. The problem is it doesn't really help your healing. So this 5%, you can just run Essence Thief. It's a better set. So Essence Thief gives you healing and stamina back, and it works on all damage. This is a nice damage boost because 10% damage a target receives is greater than you doing 10% more. So that's really worth considering. We then have 2 leads. We have a lead for the Twitching Eye, which is Mora's Whispers. This can come from the High Isle, and here you have to defeat the Watch boss in the Imperial City to get this. I wouldn't rush to get this, in all honesty, and I would definitely go and kind of skip it. It's a good mythic. The problem is it's really awkward. You have to get all the Shadow Doors library filled up. It's not worth getting. Like, it takes too long to actually make it usable. You then have the Tonal Pivot Joints, which again is for Esoteric Greaves. And this one comes from the Forgotten Wastes public boss in Vardenvale. So if you're unsure what that means, you go to Vardenvale, which is sort of around here. There's a public boss over here. It's a group dungeon, and you can get it there. It's basically, the point is you can farm this easily. We then have the same ring and neck, and you have 3 scripts. We've got Crusader's Defiance, Dispel, and Courage. Courage is fantastic. So good. I spent so much time trying to get this. Just know that because I know this already, it is a lot cheaper for me. This will be really expensive for you. But it is very good. The reason you use this is on Banner Bearer. But on Banner Bearer down here, you can put something like Shock Damage, which increases all of your damage. You can then use something like Thief's Swiftness for more damage, or ideally Cavalier's Charge. This was up a few weeks back. What this will do will give you just more damage if you're fast, and Encourage. You now have a skill that gives you up to 450 weapon and spell damage, plus 200 here, so 600 here. When you're fully buffed, this is almost 900 weapon damage. It is insane how good this is. It does need these 2 bottom scripts though. So the Cavalier's Charge was up like 2 weeks ago, which I did cover. So if you'd missed that, like, this is why you want to check the series, because I do cover it week on week. You also have Crusader's Defiance, which reduces snares for you and your group. It's a good buff for PvE. You could put on something like multi-target, Restore Resources is ideal. That's good for group play. Mitigation is quite a nice one. And then you could then use this Courage and change to something like Protection. So what you then have is a skill now that gives lots of people damage reduction, and it also reduces snares. You could also go for Immobilize. You cleanse Immobilize of yourself, and you're immune to them while you have it, so you can't be snared. And you can also make it easy for your allies to move around still. So there's a few ways you can use this. The Defiance is still worth getting. It's quite a fun one to use. There are better ones out there, but it's still definitely worth considering. The only issue with the Telvar vendor is these are really expensive. So it's a cool one to know. It's just very expensive. And then as for the Dispel, how could you use that? That is primarily used on the Elemental Explosion. And the Dispel basically removes AoE effects on the floor. So if someone chucks down Wall of Elements, you can get rid of it. If they chuck down an ultimate like Eye of the Storm, you can get rid of it. You can, if I recall, use it on Trample as well. Yeah, you can. It does a bit of damage this time, and it removes 1 damage shield from an enemy player. This is not terrible, in all honesty, because you can do a few things with this. So you can use that Warrior's Opportunity, and you can then also use Defile. You now have a skill that removes 1 damage shield from enemy players. It's an AoE. What this means is you can chuck this into a group and take off all the shields. It does a bit of damage and it removes their shield. The problem is the damage is actually done first. So it damages them, lowers the shield, and then if the shield's left, it then takes it off. If it was the other way around, it would be better, but it's still quite a decent one to consider. This again though is more for group play. I wouldn't rush to buy this. But that there, guys, covers the Golden Vendor. It has all the things you need to know. If you get any questions about this, what we're doing, what to buy, let me know in the comments below. But as always, I'm going to say a massive thanks to YouTube and Patreon members. I'll catch you next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye.